So many designers, whether they're graphic designers or website designers, never actually level up from freelancer into business owner or agency owner. And a lot of times it really doesn't have to do with their skill level or their talent. They have a great portfolio. They're good at what they do. They're super creative. But a lot of times the thing that's limiting them is actually a mental shift that hasn't quite happened yet. They're still thinking like a freelancer instead of thinking like a business owner or an agency owner. But you don't want to get stuck inside of what I refer to as the freelancer trap. You want to be able to actually scale up to the next level for your business. Again, for yes, your profitability, but also for your freedom and for your autonomy. And so in today's video, we're going to walk through the 4 different things that you could be doing practically to actually shift some of your thinking from thinking like a freelancer into actually thinking like an agency owner or like a creative business owner. By the way, if we haven't met yet, my name is Brandon. I run a creative agency called Richie Creative, and we work with great organizations to help them build websites that actually get results. And we work with great business owners and creative agencies to grow and scale their businesses so they can be more profitable and have more freedom and more autonomy. So let me just start by saying I get it. There's a time and a place to be a freelancer and to think like a freelancer. And prior to starting this agency, that's what I was doing. I had a full-time job working for a nonprofit organization. It was actually a parachurch organization that helped churches. And basically just on the weekends or in the evenings, I was designing a logo here and there or a website here and there. And over time, I just started getting more and more interest in my work. People that actually wanted to become clients or customers, or I started getting just more and more leads. And eventually it made sense to say, hey, I think we could actually be doing this full time. So I made the transition to officially start as a creative business. And I found out right away, if you're going to actually have a creative business or a creative agency, you no longer can think like a freelancer. You can't be thinking of it like a part-time thing or something that you're doing as a hobby or a side hustle or just a way to generate a little bit of extra income. You need to actually put some systems in place for your actual creative business so that it can run and scale without you. So in my mind, one of the biggest differences between a freelancer and an agency owner is with a freelancer, you basically are the limit. You are the cap for your growth and for your income. So if you continue thinking like a freelancer, you're going to actually hit a ceiling or hit a cap with the amount of projects that you can take on, the amount of clients that you can take on at a given time. And then also that's going to be reflected in the amount of revenue and the amount of sales that you actually make for your creative business. Whereas an agency owner, you're leveraging systems and processes and you're productizing things and you're figuring out ways to actually delegate either to team members or to virtual assistants, or maybe you're leveraging artificial intelligence or AI to help you with some of these systems and processes. You're thinking through, what can I be doing to actually get myself out of the business so the business isn't solely dependent on me? So one of the most rewarding things for me early on after going full-time in our business was when I was, for the first time, able to take an entire week off with my family, with my kids, and with my wife, and not have to worry about the business. Leads were still coming in, leads were still being nurtured, sales were still closing, production was still happening. So again, that couldn't happen if I was still thinking like a freelancer. I needed to make some shifts and make some changes in the ways that I was thinking about myself and my time and my skills and my creative business. So let's start by talking about some of the different ways that a freelancer thinks about working with clients versus an agency owner. So a freelancer thinks, I work for the client, while an agency owner thinks, my agency works for the client. So for a freelancer, you are the person. You are the person that's actually sending the invoices and sending the contracts and working with the client and doing the revisions back and forth and actually doing the production work, while someone who is thinking like a creative agency owner is maybe delegating some of that to a team member or to a virtual assistant. And again, they're leveraging some of those systems and processes. So it's no longer just my client, but it's our client as an agency. Another big distinction here is that a freelancer sells time while an agency owner sells outcomes. And so for a freelancer, again, you're just doing whatever the client tells you to do. Maybe they reach out to you and they want you to help with social media management, or they want you to help with copywriting or designing their logo or their website, while an agency owner is actually diagnosing the client's core problem. So you're actually interviewing the client, you're asking really good, clear questions, and you're figuring out, okay, where is your friction point in your business or in your organization? And then here's my recommendation of how our agency can help you solve that problem. So a freelancer is being contacted by somebody that needs a new logo, but that client might not actually need a new logo. They might just need a better brand guidelines document that's going to actually keep their logo consistent across all platforms. Another way to think about this is that a freelancer is trying to keep their clients happy, while an agency owner is trying to keep their clients successful. So again, as a freelancer, you're basically just doing what the client wants you to do because you want to keep a smile on their face, you want to make them happy. But as an agency owner, you're actually trying to get to the core problem and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the best solution? How can we keep you as successful as possible so that you continue to have leads coming in and basically your bottom line is just better and better every single month, every single quarter, and every single year. And I think another distinction is that as a freelancer, you're basically taking on whatever leads and whatever projects come your way. Whereas an agency owner, you have systems and processes in place to where you might not say yes to this client. You may not say yes to that project. As a freelancer, you're a little bit more desperate and you're just kind of taking on whatever work you can. And oftentimes that leads to you offering solutions that are maybe even outside of the scope that you want to offer. Whereas again, as a agency owner, you're putting systems and processes in place, and you might even actually have your clients apply to work with you instead of just taking on every single project or every single client that comes your way. Okay, so here are 4 practical things that you can even be doing today to start thinking more like an agency owner, less like a freelancer. The first one is you need to develop and create a repeatable customer process. So by repeatable customer process, what I mean is from the time somebody first interacts with you, whether it's through a Facebook ad, through a organic social media post, through a Google ad, regardless of how they're actually hearing about you for the first time, you need to be mapping that out. How do you actually want people to actually basically enter the top of the funnel? And then from there, there's nurturing. So are they getting automated emails after they download your resource? Are there email touch points, text touch points? Are you going to be calling them to follow up? And so what is the actual nurturing process going to look like? And then you need to get them onto a sales call. And that sales call needs to be pretty much the same every single time. So you have a pre-made script and a pre-made template for actually walking somebody through your pricing and your process and everything else that you want to actually cover on that discovery call. Now, I'm not saying that you can't customize it to the person and to the industry and to the type of business or organization, but the actual bones and skeletal structure of the sales call need to be the same and need to be repeatable every single time. And then after the call, onboarding. Somebody actually wants to work with you. So sending the invoice, sending the contract. How can you actually create repeatable systems and processes to where all of that is automated and it's seamless and it's basically the same with every single client? And then there's actual production work itself. So actually the process of designing the logo or designing the graphic or the website or managing the social media. How are you going to be submitting first drafts and taking rounds of revisions and delivering the deliverables at the very end of the process? So I would just get a piece of paper, get a pencil, and really think through from the very start of the journey to the end of the journey, how have we been doing things? How do we want to do things? And then try to create as best as you can a very systematic and repeatable process for that entire client journey. Okay, the next practical thing that you could do to start thinking more like an agency owner and less like a freelancer is productize your services. Now, I know this might sound a little bit confusing. What I mean by this is, as a freelancer, you might be giving custom quotes or custom scope for every single client, and you're giving them something unique every single time. But if you productize, it's going to make it much simpler because you have set pricing for a certain scope and a certain deliverable. So what I'm not saying is that you do cookie cutter. So for us, we're a website design agency. We never do cookie cutter. We don't use templates. We build custom, but our services are productized. There's certain packages that have certain price points with certain page counts and certain deliverables. And so what can you do to actually have something that is not different for every single client, but is systematic, is productized, is going to help your client to realize that when they're working with you, they can't have the mentality of anything goes or I can do whatever I want. And so it's going to set some really good guardrails and some really good boundaries as you're working on the project. But even for you, it's going to be easier for you and your team member as you start to grow more team members and more people to help you with the production. If things are repeatable, if it's systematic, and if you're actually productizing some of those different services that you're offering to your clients. The next practical thing that you could do to start thinking more like an agency owner, less like a freelancer, is actually think like a business owner and don't think like a worker. So a worker is kind of thinking very, very short term. They're coming in every morning. They're saying, what do I got to do today? And they're doing the production work. They're kind of keeping things at a very low level. Whereas a business owner is lifting their head above the day-to-day task and they're actually thinking big picture. They're trying to see ahead of the game. So what's going to be happening in a month from now or a quarter from now? Where do we want to be in a year from now? And part of that is actually figuring out what are the different day-to-day tasks that I could actually do without doing myself. And so maybe these are things that I'm giving to a VA or a virtual assistant. These are things that I'm delegating to team members, or maybe I'm leveraging artificial intelligence or ChatGPT. Or if you have a project management tool like Monday.com, there's things that you can set up as automations in your project management software. But essentially you're thinking, what are the things I can get off of my plate so that I'm not stuck in the weeds day to day with these low level tasks, so that I can actually be thinking big picture and thinking way down the line, thinking like a business owner and not thinking like a worker. Okay, so the fourth and final practical thing that you could be doing to think less like a freelancer and more like an agency owner, again, this is the one that carries the most weight in my personal opinion, is you need to work on setting your boundaries. There's a lot of different examples of boundaries that you could set for your creative business, but one example is communication. Let's say that you want to work via email to work with your clients. You want to send first drafts via email, you want to do the revisions back and forth via email, and then all of a sudden your client texts you or they send you a Facebook message or something like that. Well, a freelancer might just be okay with that because again, they're just trying to make the client happy, make the customer happy. They're just grateful to get the work. But an agency owner is actually going to push back on it and protect their boundary so that they aren't getting texts at 10 p.m. from a client and the client's expecting them to respond right away. The client needs to know, hey, here's our office hours. You're not going to just message me at 7 p.m. when I'm with my family eating dinner and expect that I'm going to get back to you right away. And you're not going to text me. You're not going to use Facebook Messenger. So again, protect your boundaries for communication, how you're communicating, when you're communicating. Another timeline you might set for a client could be related to the production process, when you're going to send the first draft, when they can expect the next draft, how many rounds of revisions are included in your logo design process or in your website design process. Some agencies might do unlimited revisions. Some might say, hey, for this particular productized service, for this certain price point, we offer 4 rounds of revisions and then we charge more in addition to that. So again, you need to be really, really clear with the boundaries. Again, a lot of this is what you're going to put in your actual agreement or your actual contract to your customer and to your client. But again, you want to make sure that you're protecting your time, that you're protecting your process. And I would even say if you're on a sales call with a client or on a phone call and they're starting to push back on what you charge or how you invoice or when you expect to get payment from them or the turnaround time or if they want something quicker, the beauty of being a business owner is you get to create the policies and the procedures and the process that you want to create for your business. So I would just say stick to your guns. Don't let clients dictate what you do and when you do it or what the actual timeline looks like. But again, set your policies, set your procedures, be confident in who you are, stick to your guns. And again, if a client doesn't want to follow these systems and processes, there's a great chance they're a toxic client and you don't want toxic clients anyways. Okay, hopefully this was a helpful video just thinking through some of the differences between how a freelancer thinks and how an agency owner thinks. I just want to say a quick thank you also to everybody who likes these videos, is subscribed to the channel and supports the channel. Thank you so much. It means a ton to me personally. Remember, you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. Stay creative and we'll catch you next time.